All right, Village. So today we're gonna be talking about Middle Ground. This is an episodes featuring cops versus ex-convicts. Basically, there's gonna be a lot of talk about the policing system in America, our criminal justice system as well. So sit back, hope you enjoy the content, as well as leave your thoughts down in the comment section below.
Cops should not carry guns.
Debatable, depends on the situation, y'all. In my personal opinion.
I mean, there are so many countries in this world that do not have this level of violence within its law enforcement department or any other department. Guns themselves are not the issue. It's the finger behind the gun, because you don't know the mentality, the mind, the heart of the person, and things trigger people and they snap.
Police officers are humans, and I feel like we don't do enough training within our police department for individuals to carry guns. America has a mental health problem at that, where it's just like not everyone has bipolar, not everyone has schizophrenia, not everyone's on a spectrum or this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, mental health is just like your daily, mental well-being. Are you happy, sad, upset, confused? Are you mentally able to do the job at hand? And like she said, it can take literally one simple thing for a person to snap off and just fire, 20 rounds in a person's back. There is a good majority of people, in the police, officer, or at least what I've come to interact with, at least being in Texas and here in Georgia, that just use the badge as a way, to take out their old trauma, to take out their old, tendencies, to be, have that sense of power that they haven't had before. And at the end of the day, when you have stuff that pops off, when you don't have a well-trained police department that has mental awareness or social emotional training, things could snap.
Right in front of my building, I was harmed by an older man. When I got away, I went to the police. Detective took me to the hospital, everything, checked me out. You know what the police officer did with having a gun and everything else? Pulled me over, saying he was taking me back home, pulled me over on a dark side of a street and raped me.
Dang.
Because of the uniform, the badge, and the gun.
Unfortunately, back in my time in university, I've had professors from the business department, I had professors in science, liberal arts, in all realms of the university that have said that they have been a victim, or their friends or their wives have been a victim of assault or SA'd by the police, because oftentimes they take that power out of control, like I've said many times in this already. And what's interesting to me, whenever we bring these issues up about police officers and all that, a lot of people are quick to go to oh, the good cop narrative. Not all cops are bad. There's most of us that are good people. We're trying to get rid of this. There's a lot of good police officers, but at the end of the day, this problem is still persisting in both these departments. And it's just one of those things where it's just we need to stop trying to cut out the opposition and just actually listen to people's concerns and really just, make a change about it, because, we need to be accountable and honest with ourselves.
I'm not saying that you should use guns, but I mean, if you have a gun, then you have to use it, of course, but not use it just for traffic stops or people with mental illnesses, stuff like that. That's out. If they have a knife or a stick or, or a fork, that doesn't justify anybody getting shot.
Now, in that instance, I mean, it's debate the situation, because you are being threatened by a weapon. If they're in close proximity and they're about to poke you, I'll say yeah, you justify using force. But I do agree, not every situation is where you need to be shooting at anybody, because certain situations like taser, baton, non-lethal things you can do instead of just reaching for your gun. But as we've seen in today's age, a lot of people are just very trigger happy.
I don't believe in the policing that the police force has done throughout many communities I've been in, but I do believe in rights versus laws, and I do believe that there are dangerous scenes that you go to where it is required to use them.
I agree.
So I have to agree that
that's fair. It's just how you use it, though.
Needs to include a pistol.
So you mean to tell me that what happened at Michigan State University with an active shooter killing 5 students, or Ubaldi, where they went into an elementary school?
But here's the thing with Uvalde. I know he's about to bring up, this is why we need to be armed. You had about at least 100 law enforcement officers from Border Patrol, from the local police department in Uvalde, that literally stood outside a classroom for a long amount of time, I believe for like an hour, and just literally just sat there not doing nothing, all with guns drawn. So I know what his narrative saying that, you know, we need to have like, you know, pistols just in case something like this happened. I agree. Like, I think there needs to be like a time where you need to use force to like stop a threat. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about broadly about cops. We're not just talking about what happens when a mass unalive event happens. We're talking about traffic stops. We're talking about, you know, working with the homeless. We're talking about DVs. We're talking about a lot of other instances where there might not be a need to use a gun unless you are feeling threatened. We've seen too many instances where police officers get too trigger happy, and at the end of the day, somebody, mother, somebody, you know, son, daughter, sister, brother, family member, loved one, friend, whatever, you know, literally can't come home because they couldn't handle, you know, or use common sense whenever you use a gun.
I've been in a situation where I've been shot at. I had 2 members of my department die in the last 2 months. I've been in situations where I've needed my firearm. I've needed every tool in my belt in my career. You would go out and then see half of the stuff I see. You may change your
and get more perspective. I agree with that.
It's dangerous.
So you can't call for backup.
What does me calling for backup having to do with?
So if you work county, okay, say in my area,
I'm a county cop,
right?
Yeah.
And in my area, I mean, you have miles and miles of nothing around you. Your closest partner is maybe if you're lucky, 20 minutes away. Okay. In the meantime, I've got somebody that has me at gunpoint, and if I don't have a gun on my hip, I'm dead.
But how do you think
She makes a valid point. Yeah,
Tasers, pepper balls, like
societal issues are not on the police. Like, I'm not stripping you of your rights, right? That is not. You can vote. I don't give a shit. You can vote. You can do all that. That is not my personal. That is not my job in life. My job is you've been accused of a crime. I got to take you to jail because this, and that, and the third. I'm done.
You're saying that
he's not technically wrong, but here's the thing. You are in a position of power, and basically, as I say, with public health and, you know, when it relates to policing, your job can be made a lot easier if you start supporting and actually understand the policies. In general, the policies that we're pushing, we're not trying to like tell the police officers, you know, we're trying to totally get rid of you. But the agenda that we're trying to push is that, you know, having a well-funded, well-armed police officers does not stop crime, does not prevent, you know, death and destruction, but community-based services like mental health services, better schooling, better, you know, ways to get parents involved, engaged with the community as well as with their children. You know, there are different ways that, you know, we think that we can prevent a lot of these like crimes, so that way officers shouldn't have to get involved and risk their lives in the first place. He needs to understand that you do have a bigger role because just a position that you have, and it's just like it will be behoove of you to start supporting these like policies and stuff to be able to make your job a lot easier, so that way, you know, 2 officers in his department wouldn't have to pass away, you know?
That's my question to you.
we actually have our own rights. You know, that we actually have our own rights to carry and defend ourselves in certain situations like that.
You know,
but
with
the
all
full
due
story-
respect, that's not the question I'm
but if
asking.
you want to use your
No,
body,
I'm asking you if you were okay. I'll ask in a different way. If you're a police officer and you have no firearms, you got your pepper spray, you have your taser, you have your baton, and you are responding to Uvalde Elementary School where there's an active shooter with an AK-47, what are you going to do?
I would say that I would call for backup to the proper authorities that would be entitled to have those weapons that are not in the general community.
I get what he's saying.
No, but what entitled to have weapons? Who? What agency?
So like the
SWAT
UK,
and above, you
yeah,
know,
what he's
there's
saying.
certain- but we're
It's
saying
like
the
United
same
Kingdom,
thing, you know?
how United Kingdom, their special force in their police department have weapons, but they're regular.
So why should you just be? Why should you have the ability to just tote around a gun?
yes, you-
That's my question to you.
What's that?
My question to you is, just because you're a cop, why should you have the right to tote a gun around just because you have a badge?
No. That's not what the prompt is. The prompt is cops being unarmed, cops
Yeah.
being all of us.
That's the same thing.
They took like over an hour to
If you let
respond
me-
when
allow me
they
to
were
finish. He
there. So
asked
you
me
had
a
the
question.
guns and you still didn't.
What I'm
shoot.
saying is that he's saying cops. Cops is a very, when you say cops to me, you're talking everybody. Every single cop, okay? And you're saying we shouldn't be unarmed. Okay.
You shouldn't have guns at all.
Okay, so you know what? Next time there's a big active shooter going into a university, then I guess we're just gonna let him shoot all the students.
So I have a question for you.
He's trying to generalize it to a whole T where it's just like, oh, you just think like all cops shouldn't carry guns. I mean, like the guy on this comedy, he probably agrees with him, but at the end of the day, where he's coming from on the right is that he is saying that there's certain instances where you shouldn't be using weapons, like dealing with the homeless. Like literally, I drove by a scene, you know, a few miles away from my apartment yesterday, coming from work. There were cops having, you know, weapons drawn on a homeless guy having a mental health breakdown, and I've seen that homeless guy around, neighborhood and stuff like that too. There's certain instances like when people are having mental health breakdowns, homeless people, you know, who are just living on the street. Some instances when you have kids fighting when there's no weapons around and basically officer gets a little trigger happy with it. What they're saying on the right is just that we're not okay with just officers using guns in any instances, and we need to start regulating that more, and that is okay. Guy, officer, you know, when bringing up Uvalde and all that, when, like I said earlier, like they literally like took a whole hour to respond, and like, you know, when they could have responded within 3 minutes. You don't know if your school resource officer or, you know, your local police officer, you know, department, you know, will have the, you know, guts enough to even stand up and take care of a situation when something happens. We live in a very dangerous society, but at the end of the day, that doesn't justify him just shutting down the whole argument because, you know, he got hurt.
Those countries that don't have their police officers carrying guns.
Not many, just so you know.
Oh, I know very well. That's the work that I do.
Okay.
So.
Nope.
And
Tell
you've
him.
been there to see that. But what I'm saying is that, have you ever thought about how those countries respond to those situations? And can we do the same?
We absolutely could not do the same because we have criminals here, and I'm not speaking of y'all, but there are people here that still carry regardless of if it's against the law. If you were to take guns away from illegals, criminals, people that are not from here,
She
I
must
would
be from
100%
Texas.
agree that officers don't need guns
So
and
are
that
those
we
mass
could go
shooters?
do
Because
what?
I think the mass shooters are not the ones, the immigrants and the.
Yeah, like most mass shooters are like white men. That's not to say that black crime don't exist. Yes, black people commit crime. Undocumented immigrants commit crime. Minorities commit crime. Yes, I'm not saying that is not true. Rather than just trying to arm the police officers and making sure they stacked up and all that, we need to start having better gun control. And we need to stop, you know, just allowing it to be easy for people to, you know, not only to carry weapons, you know, permitless carry happening in Texas right now. We don't have comprehensive gun and mental health policies that go hand in hand together, as well as the fact we don't really try to discourage people from carrying. Like, we don't have a national buyback program that some, you know, countries have. That's where, you know, cops play a big part in gun control. Like, if you want to make your job a lot easier, basically, you know, start putting more gun control with red flag laws, national background, you know, check and registry system to make sure track people having guns on all purchases, as well as the fact having a stricter, you know, requirements and regulations when it comes to these gun shows. Because a lot of people keep saying the point that, you know, oh, people are not going to buy legally, they're going to buy illegally. And that is only because if you can't buy in a state with strict laws, basically you can go into the other state and do the same thing and just sell them, you know, that have less strict laws, especially in the South. That is the main reason why the black market is popping off. If police officers become a bigger advocate for gun control, you know, this conversation wouldn't even be had right now, because at the end of the day, we can help solve your problem. And what I mean by we, I'm talking about public health officials. We do the research, we have the evidence, and that is why we are trying to help y'all do y'all jobs.
Hold on one sec. You said something. You said that the people with the guns are oftentimes criminals or, you know, people like that. And I want to say that those mass shootings that happen in our country are from people that pass a whole tons of background checks and are law-abiding, to your point, and all these things, and all of a sudden, and that was my point earlier about when people snap or whatever might happen. And we have to be clear in identifying that, because we get labeled like we're the ones doing all these mass shootings.
I absolutely loved what she said, because at the end of the day, there's a stigma in this country that people doing crimes, you know, black and brown folks, you know, it's, you know, illegal immigrants, it's, you know, this, that, and the third, you know, it's never old Timmy down the street. It's never old, you know, John, you know, who has a wife, child, you know, white picket fence, whatever, you know, he can do no wrong. Going from the Joker, it takes one day for the sanest man to devolve into lunacy. Like, literally, like, it's not only just a background check issue. We need comprehensive policies for shoring up the mental health system, to fund the police, because cops are not there to prevent things. The cops are there to limit damage or to do the bidding of the state. Like, more cops is not going to be the answer. So that's my whole thoughts about this part of the debate. It's just they keep going back and forth about, you don't want us to carry guns, all this stuff. Like, we're trying to get to policies where you don't even need to feel like you need to have a gun.
Police violence is blown out of proportion.
I think that really depends on where you're at, whether it's city, town. I think it really depends on the department, because you have a lot of departments that you see a lot of that stuff, but then you have like the smaller departments that you don't see none of that. And you have community policing. You know, we go out and we do activities with the kids. We do activities with families. Yes, we still do our job. We still pull people over, but we're not, I guess, what you would call harassing people in some of the ways that the big cities do.
You know,
I understand people's sentiment where one incident where it looks extremely bad is wrong, and then it casts an entire umbrella over the entire profession. But the way that I guess that we look at things now in the media, it's blown completely out of proportion.
So when we see the videos of a police officer handling a child, and that cop has become violent towards a child.
And I agree, but my thing is, has it been blown out of proportion? I see that one incident.
We see it a lot.
Yeah, her point is that, yes, that might be one isolated incident. Well, I wouldn't say isolated. That might be one incident you see on the news and just be like, you know, it's wrong to paint all cops bad after that. But it's a consistent problem we've seen throughout the news, especially for the past 15 years since social media has blown up.
You have to also take in consideration that there's over 1,800 agencies in the entire United States. So if you look at the big grand scheme of things as it relates to all these agencies, and you do see violence, you do see where it's scrutinized, where it's brutal.
Yeah.
But
the numbers, what you about to say, is very, very minimal from these captions right here. At the end of the day, they still happen to a point where it's just like, you're giving them immediate ammunition, because yes, I agree, media sensationalizes a lot of these instances, and I feel like media sensationalizes a lot of things. Yes, I get there's 1,800 agencies in the U.S., but we've seen a lot of instances on social media where it keeps happening, and it's still a big problem. You can't really just justify like, oh, well, there's 1,800 agencies, but the numbers are still very, very minimal. They're just talking about what's happening on social media or news. There's a lot of instances that go underreported.
there was, Rodney King, there was Emmett Till, there was all
Well,
these
and
people,
and honestly, there's bad officers. Yeah, and good officers will be the first ones to tell you there are bad officers. There's bad in every workforce that you're in. Everything. If it's bad,
Agreed, yeah.
it's bad. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
It's been shown time and time again that these bad officers don't get punished by the law. I agree, that had nothing to do with their fellow officers. Like, they're there to uphold the law. They don't make policies and all that. But at the end of the day, it's just, you just can't say there's bad in every workforce, but not every workforce carried a weapon. Not every workforce gets the privileges that an officer has. And granted, not every workforce are under the amount of pressure and stress they are under, as police officers. So when you have these bad apples, you really need to cut down the tree that it comes from.
so there is some accountability. I think we're heading in the right direction, considering 20-something years ago, you did something bad and, it got swept. Now, social media obviously has magnified it by hundreds and hundreds, which is good.
But what social media has done is just
Public
allow
criticism.
everyone to see what's happening in the moment, right? Before, we got it weeks later, months later, years later. So
Probably
we
never
know
got
what's
it,
going
y'all.
on, But now we have the ability to film it in the moment and say, hey, look at this, and this is what's being captured. It's so, it's to the point where it's not even harmful anymore. It's tragic. Why? Because we're all human beings.
Yep.
And there's a culture of violence that perpetuates within the department itself.
I don't believe it's blown out of proportion because I believe it's just barely getting the exposure that it needs.
It is what it is.
Good
That's
point.
what it is.
Good point.
Each time I've encountered the cops, it's just been like the most negative experience of my life.
So I've seen the good. When I was 16 years old, I'm in my 40s.
Okay,
I actually
Bonnie.
had a police officer who was my hero. Every contact since in multiple states, multiple divisions, has violated me, stolen from me, taken from me, and stripped me of every value I ever had. The way y'all talk to me, the approach, I'm so respectful. 18,000, that's what you said? Division?
Yep.
No, 1,800.
1,800? How many prisons are there? And how many inmates? And then we're disarmed when we come home. We can't vote, so I can't compete with you on my laws. I can't carry a gun. I can't defend myself. I can't even carry a knife. The exposure is barely there. We need more exposure.
I have many examples of being, you know, taking the side of UTPD middle of the night, trying to walk home from the library after studying for like midterms, finals, exams. They're like, we're looking for a criminal. You know, do you know anybody who matched this description? Usually it's a black or brown person. You know, do you know anybody matched the description, getting harassed? You know, I'm like being questioned while I'm trying to go home. And it's just like, a lot of my experiences with cops before that were good until I got into college. When you do your time and when you atone for the crime that you committed, you should have your rights back, and you should have every right in the book that any American citizens can enjoy because you've done your due in society. The reason that we have a higher recidivism rate as well as a high, you know, incarceration rate in the U.S. is because we treat ex-cons so badly. We don't reintegrate them back into society. We don't give them their rights back. We try to deny them at job applications. We try to deny them at housing applications, to the point where it's just like they have to go to, you know, do crime again. And it's just, that's something that we're not having an honest conversation about, and we focus on demonizing people.
All those contacts, you guys have them.
It don't matter.
Why you guys have body cams and dash cams?
Yeah.
Even your own departments don't
It's
trust
for
you.
transparency. So if I do something, the public knows why I did something. That's what it's for. I grew up in the era of body cams, so I'm fine with it. I turn it on every single time. I've had people say, hey, this person is rude, this person this and that and the third, and they watch the body cam, did nothing that they said.
Bingo. And I'll
But
jump into that.
technology is policing you. So technology has little air. Human beings are policing us in the community of a community that you don't even know our values. You come from 30 miles away is a difference in the values.
Yes, we got body cam. Yes, we got technology. But at the end of the day, that's not gonna stop people from disrespecting your values, community values. Got little Johnny, you know, from Texas, you know, coming from Highland Park, one of the richest parts in, you know, the Dallas area, going to South Oak Cliff, policing them, doing whatever, basically, you know, causing them muck, harassing, you know, black and brown people for, you know, just living their lives. Most people in the quote unquote hood are not committing crimes, are not committing felons and all that. There's a lot of people that do, but I would say most people from the hood don't do that. Like, historical data can show you that. Police officers don't want to be generalized, but they don't want to talk about how much they generalize, you know, regular everyday folk. And there's instances like the ones in Tennessee where there's an actual, you know, camera that I'm pretty sure the cops knew was there. That didn't stop them from beating the hell out of the guy. Body cams are good, but that's not enough.
So I believe that it does need more exposure beyond the cameras that y'all have.
But that's not, the DARE
That's your
program has
exposure.
nothing to do with patrol and being out on the streets and working with people and families out on the streets. I see the good in policing, but I also see the bad in policing. So, like I said, if this one side needs more exposure, I think it all needs more exposure.
I grew up in the community. I'm not judging you, but yet you see me with a uniform, you automatically judge me. And I don't think that's fair.
Well,
It's not.
because that comes from her.
Grew up in the community. I'm not judging you, but yet you see me with a uniform, you automatically judge me.
Well, because that comes from her experience. That's
Exactly.
what she's trying to say. It's like as soon as the uniform is put on, the badge, it's like, and for
An
most,
ego trip.
because I'm in that work, and I see it, and it's like the ego comes in, or that power. And as human beings, we must feel like we're in control. That's just, it just seems to be an innate thing within all of us. Oftentimes, people with titles and roles allow the titles and roles to justify what they do.
And you took an oath to protect and serve my community, his community, your community, her community, and not one of you stepped forward. I was gonna step forward and challenge it. I hesitated and went back because I wanted to rethink it. Not one of you felt like when you put on that badge and that tool belt that there was no justifiable reason to commit a crime because it'd be self-defense, right?
Some things are justified. Like I just said, basic survival. I deal with aliens all the time, right? They go and steal something. My department requires me to do something when somebody steals.
At the end of the day, that's not part of their job. Like, they're just there to feed their families, get paid, you know, protect and serve state property, all that, and, you know, whatever law requires them to do, they gotta do it. They're talking to the wrong people about this. I think they need to talk to policymakers. They need to talk to like state officials about this.
I have a parole until 2036 for narcotics. I've never hurt anybody. Nobody's ever overdosed from my drugs. I just got caught under the Reagan laws. I was raised in there. I've created my deepest friendships that I have in there. I've left women behind in there. The problem is that when I found myself in trouble since I've been home, the last number I would call is anything with a 11, 211, 411, or 911. My loss of faith and belief in the whole entire police community is gone. It ain't no 2% of you in my eyes. There ain't no 1%, because you might be a hero one day, and then 16 years later, back against the corner, lose everything you stood for. And it happens. We're humans.
Let me give you a perfect example.
Not
right?
snitching.
Let's say I have a broken down car. You know,
Okay.
I have a broken down car, and nobody called you. You just happen to see a broken down car, and I have my emergency lights on too, so I'm declaring that I'm having an emergency situation.
Okay.
You see me out and about. I'm on my phone. I'm in a safe area on this side, on the right side of my vehicle, where I'm not in imminent danger. I'm following all my protocols. Let's say I even go as far as putting a road flare or a cone from like a traffic kit. I cover all my T's and A's. You know, I'm literally trying to avoid you because I don't like you. So I'm doing everything I gotta do, but here you go. Woo, 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 woo. Hey, what's up? Do you need help? And I'm like, no, sir, I don't need any help. I've called AAA, they're on their way. I verbally communicated with you that I'm good. I'm in no imminent danger.
He lived
I
this
put my
experience
thumbs up,
before.
I'm waiting for AAA. I relayed to you, verbally communicated that I'm okay. I'm not bleeding. You're not seeing anything going on with me that would attract you to come after me. But here you are, grabbing at your belt, pulling at your thing, just seeking for something to go after.
This is what I was going to say. I'm going to tell you what I always say in patrol. You know, and this is what I said in my earlier comment where we get painted with this broad brush. First of all, I would have given you a ride. When you say you, I just want to make sure and be clear that me personally.
That's why I have AAA though. I don't need a ride.
I mean, exactly. That's why he's getting help.
What I'm saying is that in my mind, you're speaking about me personally, I would have helped you no matter what.
But I don't
okay?
need your help. I've advised you, verbally
Roger
told
that.
you.
That's
when
fine.
you were 10
and you
feet
know
away,
what?
and you kept
I
coming
would have went
towards
to
me.
I would have took off
When
and
you
went
were
to
like
Starbucks and
15
got a
feet
cup. I would have took off and went to Starbucks and got a cup. I understand that. But what I'm saying is that I'm going to tell you what I always used to say when I used to work in the streets. You know what? I can't speak and I can't feel what you feel.
So why did you?
Let me finish.
See what
Let
I
me
mean?
finish.
You guys are predators, bro. Exactly. Nobody called. Who called you?
You're not letting me
So
finish.
who called you?
He doesn't understand the. Can we get a little
That's
protocol
what he
here,
started
the
off
Q&A,
with.
where he talks and then I talk?
Yeah,
Because
one
he's
sec.
not letting me talk.
Okay, you can respond, and then I
Okay.
want to hear from Star, and then we
Yeah.
have to go to the next
And
part.
can you just please let me finish? Okay.
I mean, I'm answering the valid points validly. You know, just saying.
You're not letting me. You know what? Disregard.
It's good. We
You're
don't
not
gotta
letting
agree,
me
but
finish
you know,
what
I
I'm
gotta
saying.
say like.
What I'm trying to.
But you
what
gotta
I'm
have more
trying-
patience as a police officer.
Well, no, it's- well-
you just got a quick snap, and I can see it.
You always
No,
gotta be
no,
right.
no,
Like,
I'm
you
just
don't
used to
always gotta be
arguing.
right.
No, she made a good point. Like, I understand what the police officer is saying. Like, he would approach it differently, and like he's just trying to be helpful. But at the end of the day, that is his experience. Like, he's a good officer, but at the end of the day, not all cops are like them. And there's been many times where cops will come over and pull you over. They see maybe a black and brown person, and they pull on you to see what you up, and then it's automatically, or if you're drinking a hostile or whatever, when literally you're just trying to get help and you're just trying to take care of your situation, be about your day. Like, I've had this happen to cousins, I've had this happen to classmates, colleagues. It's happened enough times where it's justified he feels the way he feels. And that's not to the cop. I know it's not easy to get painted with a brush. I don't think it's fair for them to all get painted with a brush. But at the end of the day, they represent a culture where this has happened for at least a century. Like, you can't get mad that he feels this way. And it's just like, I feel like a lot of cops don't understand the history of policing. When they go in, they just like, oh, I just want to protect and serve. They don't understand what does that bring, what does culture they represent. And it's like they're not understanding the reason why in society, like, cops are looked down upon, but yet we don't look down on firefighters, we don't look down on paramedics, we don't look down on anybody else, because we know from them they're been used to come serve and protect. But at the end of the day, officers have been traditionally been used to protect the property of the state and not its people.
Commit violent felonies don't deserve certain legal rights.
You know what? I'm sorry, I can't do this. I can't do this episode no more. It's not making any sense. The questions just don't make sense to me. I
Sorry.
can't really get my point across how I want to. And the questions are kind of like reversed. Like, it's like you're asking the question, but you kind of. I can't do it.
I totally understand.
I can't do it.
You can always share whether you agree or disagree.
Everybody's talking over each other. And
so-
I can't be on camera doing that.
I totally
I'm trying to
understand.
get my point across at the police. You know what I mean? But I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like I can't do that, and if I can even get my point across, there's no point in me being here.
So
So I'm out of here.
He has a
Can we take
point.
a smoke break then?
I get they don't want to be branded as terrible cops. I get that they're good people that are trying to good things in the forest. They represent the 2% that are trying to do the good in the community. That is not indicative of American cop culture. Look up MK Ultra, how they try to mess with Martin Luther King. Look up the war on drugs, how cops has been militarized and mobilized to destroy entire communities, not by Reagan laws, but also by the Clinton laws that was pushed by Joe Biden, who called black children black bastards. When we talk about Black Panthers, you know, we always bring up, oh, they were a violent militant group, you know, they were trying to destroy community, they were trying to like turn around guns, they threatened cops, whatever, we had to neutralize them. Like, Black Panthers also had lunch and breakfast programs to feed children. They had healthcare screenings where members of their community get access to healthcare services by our government, by our local officials, because note to self, racism has played a part in all of that. Not many people were able to get access to the Black Panthers took care of that. Basically, you know, Black Panthers did a lot of things that we in the public health space felt like, you know, our own government couldn't do. I'm not mad at him for feeling the way he feel by F the police, because at the end of the day, the police officers has been used to use terrible things, and they still do terrible things. All right, yo, so that's the video. With that being said, stay warm, stay frosty, depending on what part of the country you're in, and peace out.